Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Welcome to 5 to Thrive Live. This is a show about thriving for those who have been affected by cancer and chronic disease. I'm Dr. Lisa Schuler, and I co-host with my good friend Carolyn Gazella. You can find all of our past podcasts on any major podcast outlet and also our schedule on ithriveplan.com. So tonight, I'm very excited to be talking with Dr. Nasha Winters about integrative oncology, what's working well, where integrative oncology falls short, what the future may bring, and really I have the perfect guest to discuss this with. Dr. Nasha Winters is a naturopathic oncologist, an internationally recognized leader in integrative oncology, and a pioneer of terrain-centered approaches to cancer and chronic illness. And she's been at this for more than 3 decades. And during that time, she's advanced a systems-based model of care that explores the interconnected biology of metabolism, immune resilience, inflammation, circadian health, the environment, and the lived realities that shape human health. Dr. Winters has created training programs for clinicians, for allied health professionals, and health advocates all over the world. She's also served in nonprofit executive leadership. She's supported grant-based access to integrative care for patients and their families. And she is the co-author of The Metabolic Approach to Cancer, as well as Mistletoe and the Future of Integrative Oncology. And she's the voice behind the 10 the Terrain podcast and the 10 the Terrain Substack. So before we get to Dr. Winters, I do want to thank our sponsors. First, Cetria, a patented form of glutathione, which increases blood glutathione levels to help us defend against free radicals and the damage they cause. We also thank ProThrivers Wellness Supplements, including ProThrivers Wellness Brain, which is designed for thrivers with ingredients that increase memory, focus, and attention, such as cognizin. And you can find ProThrivers Wellness Brain at various online outlets, including pureformulas.com. And finally, Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics, a best-selling probiotic for over 30 years, with 12 probiotic strains that are shelf-stable without refrigeration due to their unique fermentation process. And you can learn more at drohhiraprobiotics.com. All right, hello, Nasha. Welcome to 5 to Thrive Live.
Wow, Dr. Lise, it is excellent to be here with you in this incredible production. I love this show.
Yes, well, and I'm so happy to have you on. You've been on before, and so really it's welcome back.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Winters, you've been working in integrative oncology for over 3 decades, and this is kind of a big question to start, but if you had to say, like, what's changed most over the last 3 decades, what would you say in integrative oncology specifically?
That's such a good question. Really, I think the biggest thing is we went from being dismissed completely to being in the room. And I want to credit, folks like you for making that happen. I mean, we were kind of like the kids at the Thanksgiving dinner who had to, first of all, we weren't even allowed at Thanksgiving dinner. And then we were allowed at a little card table in the garage. And now I think we're at the table. We're at the table, at the big kids table now. And so part of that is thanks to this common language that's finally landed in the last decade or so, which is epigenetics and pharmacogenomics and precision medicine. It's given these worlds a shared vocabulary. And when you add to that the demand for, I believe, a quality of life, not just survival curves, and much better global research, and it suddenly starts to collapse away from the alternative versus conventional. So I'm very excited. I never thought I would see over these 3 decades that I would see the ability for us to be in these rooms, having these conversations as peers and colleagues and not just as adversaries.
So we've graduated from the kids' table. That's so awesome. I think that's true. Actually, I do agree with you that we are now really part of the conversation. I would even go further and say we're helping to create the conversation in some cases as well, which is exciting. So speaking of that, okay, so that's sort of where we've come in a sense. So what do you see as up and coming? Like, what are some of the most important emerging trends in integrative oncology that you think we should be paying attention to?
Well, I'm excited, going to the SIO, the Society of Integrative Oncology conferences around, annually, and now emerging in the UK with the BSIO as well. These concepts that were fringe for a very long time and are now sitting sort of at the center point for some training, not some trainings, but opportunities for people to learn that there are therapies that are well vetted, well curated, that actually do hold water and do make standard of care shine. So things like diet and specifically timing around various treatments. So for instance, there was the direct trial that showed there's 3 times higher tumor response and less DNA damage to immune cells when folks are using a fasting mimicking diet. This was something that was charlatanism just a few years ago. Things like mistletoe. I know we're going to probably touch on this later, so I'll come back to that. But, a safety trial is completed here in the United States with 2 more being given the thumbs up by the FDA, and they're actively raising funds for phase 2 and 3 here in the US. Things like photodynamic and sonodynamic therapy, which were actually therapies in conventional oncology since the 1960s, but they kind of got pushed to the corner, pushed to the wayside. And now they're emerging from the darkness, and we're realizing that we can use both pharmaceuticals and herbal remedies to sensitize cancer cells paired with therapies from oxygen and therapies of light that actually create a die-off effect on cancer cells. This is really exciting research coming out. Off-label drugs. Oh my gosh, you can't walk 2 feet today without stepping on an off-label drug claim. These are the real frontiers that are pairing standard of care, making standard of care work better. And guess who's driving it? It's not you and I, as much as we've been trying our best for decades. It's our patients. Our patients are driving these narratives. Our patients are finding the literature and dusting these trends off and bringing light to them and research eyes on them.
Yeah, I really think that's a wonderful summary, and all of that is absolutely exciting. I love especially the combination that we're starting to see of different categories of therapy. Like you mentioned, for example, some of what I would characterize as the physical therapies, this using sound waves or using frequency-based therapies with maybe a medication, with perhaps a botanical, and then throw onto that the whole mind-body medicine piece. I mean, we're really starting to think about this in a much more multimodality fashion, which I get excited about personally, because I think that's really where it's at.
Yeah.
So, but it's not all been roses. Like there are some things that you indicated a lot of this is patient initiated and driven, and that's true. And there've been, particularly in this arena of oncology, some patient initiatives or interests that have fallen short. Even things that we've had high hopes for and haven't really panned out. And I'm wondering if you have a couple of those that come to mind.
Yeah, and I think, again, I love that you reiterated that a lot of these initiatives are patient driven. And as such, they look to each other for support where they're feeling, failed or not listened to by their team members, their traditional conventional therapies or their integrative or alternative therapies, maybe not jumping to act on some of these trends or some of these therapies. A few of them that might have looked really good in the petri dish, that never really paid off in person are things. And then even anecdotally, you and I have been at this long enough time to know that there's a lot of things that have been tried that you are hopeful that can make a difference. And maybe for some they do, because remember, we're in that bell-shaped curve. We'll always have outliers. We'll always have a few people that respond really nicely to something and terribly to something else. So things like juicing, Laetrile, mega doses of iodine, Budwig, the Budwig diet, which is that, cottage cheese and flaxseed and alkaline water. They're still circling the social media influencer rounds and really still have deep, deep roots out there in the world. And I see a lot of patients who are doing these things. And I honestly just don't see the metrics paying off. I don't see the outcomes we'd hope for. So the same caution now is also there for me personally for the off-label drug frenzy. We have a lot of people trying to go it alone in that department. And we think somehow that a smaller dose or an off-label dose is somehow less toxic or less problematic, but we still have our pharmacogenomics at play, or things that we think that perhaps maybe something like, oh gosh, SCACT is a really good idea, but if you have a strongly estrogen sensitive cancer process, you might be fanning the flames of that, because there's a lot of really powerful phytoestrogens in those teas and extracts. So, this is where I get really, really passionate about the concept of test, assess, address, don't guess, because many of these therapies that we've said yes to and had hype around, they just simply don't test out into reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are all really good examples. And, I think that the important thing is to, what you said, to assess constantly. Like, one of my pet peeves is not that people try things that are maybe not yet proven, but rather that they try them and never reassess how well or not that thing is or things are working. And I think that's where people can make mistakes, and because the longer somebody's doing something that's not effective, the narrower their options are for what could be effective. So I think that your recommendation to keep retesting, reassessing is so important.
Yeah.
Really, really important. All right, I want to switch gears a little bit and just kind of make this more personal. If you could have done something different in your career, what would that have been, or what would that be now?
It's funny because honestly, I probably would have just continued or started playing in the dirt a little bit sooner. I have such a love for the creation of beauty and beautiful spaces, especially from organic materials. I have such a passion for regenerative farming. I have such a passion for, for me personally, I see the soil as the same workplace as, the soil outside the body to inside the body. And that's what's really informed my way of being. And so, it's funny that I'm rushing back that. In fact, that is kind of on the horizon for me, as well as taking that passion of where I'd like to be with what I already have been doing and creating something entirely new with both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wonderful. That's great. And in fact, I want to talk about something new, which is you're the creative medical architect behind a residential integrative cancer hospital and research institute concept, which has incorporated regenerative farming, sustainable design, intentional community. I mean, this sounds amazing. So can you tell us more about this?
Yeah. I mean, I think what's so extraordinary about this is that, first, I want everyone to just picture a poisoned golf course that has been in operation since the 1940s in the middle of Southeast Arizona on just massive land that is been brought back to life with a hospital planted in the middle. Like, just imagine that. So in 2018, this golf course was shut down. The water stopped. 96 million gallons of water a year were paused. The 5.5 riverfront river that they sat on, the Santa Cruz River, had been mostly just seasonal underground. And in the resting of all that water, it's been charging the aquifer. And now they're starting to see more ponds and streams year round on this property. They stopped the chemical input that was there. And already in just a few years, Mother Nature alone, without any input from things like microzyme, like mushrooms and other things to remediate the soil, has already evicted the chemical offenders from years and years of heavy input for a golf course. So this 1,200 acres remediated land is becoming a regenerative organic farm and vineyard and ranch. And the vision is this intentional community built in, on, and around it through the sustainable design that you just described. So this 150 bed residential integrative oncology hospital and research institute is like another crop on that property. It's a destination for wellness. It's an innovation hub. It's a place where clinicians of every modality can come and learn and to teach, but also to teach people how to live healthy on this increasingly unhealthy planet. So my hope is that it becomes the place where prevention precludes the treatment, via early diagnostics, screening, and education. And then survivorship continues long beyond the ringing of the bell. So this isn't just a clinic. This is where you get your imaging, your labs, your biopsy, your intratumoral interventions, your metronomic chemo, your fractionated directed radiation with those supportive therapies we talked about earlier, your off-label drugs, your IVs, your diet, your lifestyle, your Eastern modalities, physical medicine, cooking classes, farming classes, literally spending time on the land with the farmer, doctors in the kitchen with the chef, the researchers, learning from the patients in real time. This is how I think it needs to happen. We need to pull ourselves out of the silos and remember that we are of this earth, and we got to do better to take care of her so we can take care of ourselves.
Oh, amazing. I mean, it's such a good, and what's the timeline on this?
Timeline is money. The land has been donated. The land is there. The property is continuing to be, just every time I go visit a couple times a year now, the land just keeps shining her beautiful bright light. It's incredible what has already happened from a place that was decimated with chemical input, is now flourishing, and the things that are coming back there, the animals, nature, the things that are growing there naturally, the types of foods that are being planted there, the ponds being set and the aquifer being recharged. It's creating a whole new ecosystem in Southeast Arizona that could reforest the desert. And so the timeline is just funding. We're looking at funding for the actual build out. We have the pro forma, we have the architectural renderings. I've got the long list of dreams of who I want to run and operate this place, and a lot of really smart people advising on how that works. It can happen in phases. It doesn't have to happen all at once. But, if you have any billionaire friends lying around that want to really do good in the world and make this a pilot, because we also intend this to be lots of seedlings coming off of this all over the globe. But if you've got 250 million lying around, that's about the build out for this 250,000 square foot facility.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, that's exciting. Maybe somebody will get inspired who's listening. So, love that. Just amazing. So you mentioned mistletoe earlier. Let's just circle back around to that, just because you've really done so much to put mistletoe on the map, particularly in North America. And I just want to just see if you could give us a little bit of a preview into coming attractions on this. Like, where is it at? And you mentioned a couple of research projects. So what's coming up for mistletoe?
Well, in some ways, we're long overdue here in the United States to make this just legal and accessible. Compared to the rest of the world, we look like dinosaurs. It's really a standard adjunct across all of Europe. It's in the pharmacopoeia of our neighbors here in the north, in Canada. It's on the pharmacopoeia in India and South America. One of my colleagues is a pediatric oncologist who uses it in the hospital in São Paulo, Brazil, for his pediatric population. We've had the completion of the first U.S. trial on an IV application of mistletoe at Johns Hopkins. And as I mentioned, it's moving into phase 2 and 3 with the blessings, but just money. Sadly, no one wants to fund this. So it's like having bake sales to pay for this thing, which is ridiculous, given that there are over 250 good RCT studies on it globally around the world. I don't understand why we create these 17-year gaps of research, bench to the bedside, when we've already proven its safety, proven its efficacy, proven its ability to play well with others, specifically in supporting standard of care and patients' quality of life along the way. So my hope is what comes next is the US will wake up and join arms with the other developed countries around the world who already utilize this in their patients with cancer.
Yeah, it's funny. And it's also odd because there's still a lot of prejudice around mistletoe. Yep. I have a lot of conversations, to be honest, with conventionally trained oncologists, some of whom even are very integratively minded and oriented, who still feel that mistletoe is all hype and no data. But it's just odd because there is so much data.
It is. And we actually wrote with the book of 6 other authors of mine that collectively we have almost 200 years of mistletoe experience between us. One of them has almost 50 years under his own belt. I have since 2003. I have other colleagues 25, 30, 40 years out in the use, and our own data that we've collected. This isn't one and done. This is thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of patients, including our colleague who works in a hospital in Switzerland where it is part of the standard of care. It is in the hospital. It is covered by the national healthcare system. They're getting their mistletoe alongside their chemo, their radiation, and their, other therapies. And it's just, it's mind-boggling. And that's why we wrote this book, Mistletoe and the Emerging Future of Integrative Oncology, was to really show, shine the light that this is a very well-studied and well-appreciated support for our patients dealing with cancer.
Yeah, and I think that you just said something which I want to highlight, which is that, this hospital that you mentioned, and much of what I've heard you speak about is using mistletoe as part of an integrative approach. It's not a cure-all on its own. It's really there to augment how people respond to other treatments and do more tumor destruction, have better quality of life. So as many of our therapies are, these are what we call adjunctive, additive, supportive, both and, not either or.
Exactly.
So speaking of this, how do you recommend that patients find truly vetted, well-educated clinicians when they're looking for safe, informed consent medicine, including, for example, mistletoe therapy? How do they go? How do they find these people?
You know what? There are a lot of people out there hanging a shingle and calling themselves an expert. And yet it's kind of a still small little community. I mean, we go to conferences and you see the same people, right? You know who's showing up to learn, you know who's showing up to expand their skill set and expand their awareness of what is out there in the research and what is out there in what we can offer to our folks. So in finding those vetted, there is one organization that I really love that they do a very good job of vetting. They have a directory, and they have a directory that includes folks who've got specialty training and folks who are integrative minded or naturopathic trained that are very, very specific to the cancer space. And they have taken their due diligence and put their sign and seal of approval on it, which is cancerchoices.org. Mm-hmm. I think they do a very good job vetting their directory. Even all of the monographs and things they have on there are really thought out. They have a whole team of researchers and scientists and really well-intended patient advocates on there that are really doing the sorting of the, of the BS from the good stuff out there. Yeah.
Cancerchoices.org, a fantastic organization. I mean, website. They have not only, like you said, a vetted directory, but also really highly vetted information on their site too. Yeah. And so that's a great recommendation. I'll also throw out there the oncanp.org website, which is where you can find naturopathic oncologists directly. So definitely some options for people. And then, of course, the Society for Integrative Oncology is a resource as well. All right, so we're kind of down to our final few minutes here. So if you had a magic wand, I love giving people magic wands. I wish they really existed, honestly, but you have one. What would cancer care look like?
Well, first of all, my first wish with my magic wand would, can we please stop calling it a tumor board? That would be my first wish. First wish is we'd call it a terrain board, or a human board, because that's really what this is. We have spent so many years and so many decades chasing the tumor that we've forgotten the most critical part of that equation, the individual, right? And what took that tumor, what gave that tumor the opportunity. So I want, in my magic wand, I will have people asking why a cancer process could have taken root and expressed the way that it did. And then we would guide the whole system back towards homeostasis, and there would be no stone left unturned, no single therapy crowned as better. And whatever fits that patient's constitution gets used, and lifestyle medicine in every conversation, and our energy poured into prevention instead of crisis management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good magic wand. I'm going to borrow your wand for a moment and just add a few touches in there, which is, I think that there's something to me, we're seeing cancer diagnosed at earlier and earlier ages. So clearly we have an environmental issue going on. Yeah. And so I would also like to see cancer awareness start when people are very young, and it's a community issue. It's a school issue. It's how people, what people can access in terms of their food choices and their material choices, and even their, personal care, home choice. All these things really become, we recognize that the fight against cancer, I'm using air quotes, is something that really is requires a societal change. And that, of course, starts with awareness, and we can all get in this fight, and we all have to work together to remember that we're living on a living planet, and we have to take care of that planet. And until we do that, this disease is not going away. Mm-hmm. And I think that, that's another thing I would just emphasize with everything you said.
Love it. I'll sprinkle some fairy dust on that too. That was a good one.
All right. I like that we've become these magic creatures. All right. So what final thoughts do you have for our listeners?
I mean, first, you guys listening, you are the change agent. The patient moves this field faster than any research or guidelines ever will. I alluded to this research lag that's an average of 17 years behind the bench before a clinician is handed a guideline to apply to their patient. And so until then, there are some really cool things happening where we can be doing research in real time in the middle of a trial, as well as applying things that make sense, that have actual data behind them, maybe not the RCTs yet, but are things that are actually making sense. And so I want folks to remember to do their homework and go find the information that isn't just handed to them on a silver platter. We've given some resources today where you can do that to make sure you're getting good, vetted, curated information. And I think the final piece that I want to leave for all of you is an empowered patient is a very hard to kill patient.
Love it. An empowered patient. Okay, that's good. That's powerful. I mean, and I think I would, empowered patient, empowered caregiver, like really just step into the ring on this and ask questions and continue to seek answers. And I think also listen with when you find providers that are doing their best and are trying to get their data lined up on your behalf, listen, maybe just because I think people can get into a place with this illness where they're empowered, but they're also fearful, and then their fear can drive the bus. So maybe empowered and trusting and
regulated.
Okay, that sounds good. So where can our listeners find you? Just give us all you got, your podcast, your website, your donation bucket for your new community of cancer prevention and care.
Thank you. Well, the simplest place, the biggest bucket to go to is just drnasha.com, drnasha.com. And on there, that will take you into some of the books that Dr. Lise brought up. So Metabolic Approach to Cancer, Mistletoe and the Emerging Future of Integrative Oncology. And we also just rolled out a little ebook on the terrain so people can understand what the heck I mean by that. And then finally, the 10 the Terrain podcast and the 10 the Terrain Substack. Those last two are all free resources for you. So have at it and stay in touch.
Well, Dr. Nasha, I'm so delighted that we had this time to chat. And I, again, just want to say how much I appreciate you, your contributions to the field, your dedication to patients, your dedication to your own health and wellness, and, just you're kind of being not only in it, but continuing to evolve it and to innovate it. I think that takes a special person. And I want to just appreciate you for who you are and all that you do.
Aww. Wow. Thank you. And I'm going to say back at you, because every day I watch what you're doing for one of the major universities, what you're doing for this field. Like I said, you're the reason why we're out of the card table in the garage and at the main table. And I'm just really grateful for what you're doing and even this medium in which you're doing it. So thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. Well, we just gave each other a virtual hug, and that was good. So on that note, we're going to wrap up this episode of 5 to Thrive Live. We thank our sponsors once again: ProThrivers Wellness Brain Formula, Cetria Glutathione, Dr. Ohhira's award-winning probiotic. And just a reminder, listeners, you can find all of our past shows on ithriveplan.com or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And with that, I want to thank you for joining us. May you each and all experience joy, laughter, and love. It's time to thrive, everyone. Have a great night.